running a massive Epstein cover-up right out of the Department of Justice. You've been ordered by subpoena and by Congress.
What began as a routine Justice Department oversight hearing exploded into one of the most intense confrontations Attorney General Pam Bondi has faced before Congress. Within moments, Congressman Jamie Raskin accused the Justice Department of abandoning victims, withholding critical information, and allowing politics to influence decisions that should be guided only by the law. But this wasn't just another partisan clash. Raskin made it clear that today's hearing would focus on accountability, transparency, and whether the Department of Justice is serving the American people or protecting the powerful. And as the hearing unfolded, the accusations only became more direct.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Attorney General Bondi. You've got the best lawyer's job in America because your mission is justice and your clients are the American people. But to promote justice for the people, you've got to listen to the victims, like the women seated behind you today. Those are just some of the hundreds of survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's global sex trafficking ring who are demanding that the truth be told and are demanding accountability for the abusers who trafficked and raped them. You still haven't met with these survivors. So with their permission, let me introduce to you the survivors and late survivors' family members who are present today. There's Teresa Helm, there's Jess Michaels, Laura Bloom McGee, Danny Bensky, Liz Stein, Marina Lacerda, Sky and Amanda Roberts, who are the family of the late Virginia Giuffre, Charlene Richard, and Lisa Phillips. Now, you're not showing a lot of interest in the victims, Madam Attorney General, whether it's Epstein's human trafficking ring or the homicidal governmental violence against citizens in Minneapolis. As Attorney General, you're siding with the perpetrators and you're ignoring the victims.
Raskin's opening statement wasn't simply an attack on Pam Bondi. It was designed to frame the entire hearing before the questioning even began. Instead of focusing on legal procedures, he centered his argument on accountability, arguing that the Justice Department has a responsibility to the public and, above all, to the victims. By doing that, he established the core issue that would dominate the rest of the hearing, whether the department had been fully transparent or whether critical information had been withheld from both Congress and the American people. With that foundation in place, the hearing shifted from opening statements to direct questioning, where Bondi would finally have to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start by saying I appreciate what you said, Attorney General Bondi, and you said it to me personally, that you take the personal security of every member of Congress seriously and that people can contact you about that. And in these times, that's a very serious matter. So I thank you for that. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7 of the Constitution is the Domestic Emoluments Clause. And it says that the president is limited to his salary in office and cannot receive any other money from the federal government while he's in office. It cannot be increased by $1. This president is the first president in U.S. history who has repeatedly sued the federal government for $230 million for the judicial search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, which was perfectly lawful and was never struck down. But now he's suing the IRS for $10 billion. He's suing the IRS for $10 billion, which I think is around 80% of its annual budget, because his tax returns were leaked. And they were illegally leaked by a private contractor who actually is in prison now, Charles Littlejohn. But he wants $10 billion. Now, I want to ask you the question of whether you think it would violate the Domestic Emoluments Clause for you to settle that $10 billion case or any of the other claims that the president has made against the government. He himself has remarked, it's interesting because I'm the one that makes the deal, right? And he says, I kind of have to work it out with myself. Do you think it would violate the Domestic Emoluments Clause for the president to work out a deal from people who are his subordinates under his unitary executive theory to get money in one of these cases?
I'm not going to discuss pending litigation.
Okay, so theoretically you're saying because his privacy rights were violated in that tax case, and they were. I'm with the president on that. I mean, his Mar-a-Lago thing is ridiculous, but there's no doubt that his tax returns, despite the fact that he promised to release them, despite the fact that every other president released the tax returns, he suffered embarrassment when it showed that he hadn't paid taxes for several years, and he had a right for that not to happen. Now, I want to turn back to the Epstein survivors, because President Trump may have been a little bit embarrassed by the release of those tax returns. How much do you think the claims of these survivors are worth? As the good congressman from Kentucky just pointed out, there were lots of survivors who had decided, for reasons of their own, never to release their names. That determination was represented to people in Congress, and we built it into our federal law that their names could not be released, and yet you published their names, their phone numbers, their addresses, personally identifying information. If Donald Trump can get $10 billion, theoretically, from the Department of Justice, how much should these people get for a far worse violation of their privacy rights and a far greater danger established to them in
Notice
their
what happened
lives?
there. Raskin wasn't asking about politics or campaign rhetoric. He was asking whether the Justice Department would take concrete action on behalf of the Epstein survivors and coordinate with state and local law enforcement. It was a direct question that called for a direct answer. What happened next would quickly turn the hearing into one of its most heated exchanges.
Do you even know who Chase Mulligan is? You're so obsessed with, you
Okay,
don't, do you?
I'm going to teach you the
just made a
rules again.
face.
You're the Attorney General of the United States. We have rules
You're
here.
obsessed with him.
You're the Attorney General of the United States.
With
And the rules,
obsessed with Donald Trump. You
No.
have Trump derangement syndrome.
Mr. Chairman,
Chase
I'd like my time
Mulligan will be
restored. I'd like my
sentenced
time
next week
restored.
in your district. In your district,
Stop
and you
the
don't
clock.
even know about it, about keeping children safe from online predators.
Time belongs to the gentleman from Maryland.
Bondi's
And,
response
real
immediately
privilege.
changed the
I'm thrilled to
direction
be
of the
here today.
exchange. Instead of directly committing to the task force Raskin had proposed, she focused on defending the department's actions and shifted the discussion toward a specific criminal case and the committee's handling of the issue. That prompted Raskin to repeatedly reclaim his time, arguing that his central question had still not been answered. The hearing quickly moved away from the original issue of accountability for the Epstein survivors and became a procedural and political confrontation. Whether viewers see Bondi's response as a legitimate defense or an attempt to avoid the question, this exchange became one of the defining moments of the hearing because it left the core issue unresolved deaths.
You're running a massive Epstein cover-up right out of the Department of Justice. You've been ordered by subpoena and by Congress to turn over 6 million documents, photographs, and videos in the Epstein files, but you've turned over only 3 million. You say you're not turning over the other 3 million because they're somehow duplicative, but we know that there are actual memos of victim statements in there, and you also took down the Department of Justice's prosecution memo from 2019. So it's clearly not all duplicative, but even if it were, why not release it? Just release all the duplicative stuff. In the half you did produce, you redacted the names of abusers, enablers, accomplices, and co-conspirators, apparently to spare them embarrassment and disgrace, which is the exact opposite of what the law ordered you to do. Even worse, you shockingly failed to redact many of the victims' names, which is what you were ordered to do by Congress. Some of the victims had come forward publicly, but many had not. Many had kept their torment private, even from family and friends, but you published their names, their identities, their images on thousands of pages for the world to see. So you ignored the law, and even with over 100,000 employees at your disposal, you acted with some mixture of staggering incompetence, cold indifference, and jaded cruelty towards more than 1,000 victims raped, abused, and trafficked. This performance screams cover-up.
By this point, the hearing had moved far beyond questions about procedure. Raskin was no longer asking whether mistakes had been made. He was accusing the Justice Department of deliberately withholding information from the public. His argument centered on 3 issues: missing records, heavily redacted documents, and the handling of information connected to the Epstein investigation. Taken together, he argued these were not isolated problems but signs of a broader lack of transparency. Those accusations dramatically raised the stakes of the hearing, turning it from a policy dispute into a direct challenge to the Justice Department's credibility.
Here's what I want to ask you. You're in law enforcement. We've seen all kinds of evidence of crimes. And when we go over to the Department of Justice for the 4 computers for every member of Congress, we see more evidence of crimes. Will you create a joint task force of the Department of Justice and governors and state attorney generals and district attorneys across the country to investigate the crimes that have taken place against these victims and more than 1,000 like them? The DOJ is not doing its job. Will you create a task force with state and local law enforcement to make that happen?
Gentlelady can respond if she wants to.
Thank you, Chairman. He called Chase Mulligan a wild goose chase and didn't even know who he was. He is a defendant in your own district who preyed on girls.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know what? If he were part of the Epstein investigation, you wouldn't do anything about it.
Online chat rooms and committed sextortion. Yet he didn't even know in your tiny little district who he was.
Mr. Chairman, she's embarrassing you.
He's about to be
This is your committee, and she is embarrassing
Shame
you.
on you.
The time of the gentleman has expired.
By the end of the hearing, the debate had grown far beyond a single investigation. What began as questions about the Epstein files evolved into a broader argument over transparency, accountability, and the role of the Justice Department itself. Raskin argued that victims deserve clear answers and meaningful action. Bondi defended her department and rejected the accusations against it. The result was one of the day's most confrontational exchanges, leaving lawmakers sharply divided over whether the department had met its responsibilities. Now the question moves beyond Congress and to the public. After watching this exchange, do you believe the Justice Department answered the concerns that were raised, or do you think the hearing left more questions than answers?